Hello and welcome to episode 3 of What's in My Insurance Policy. I'm your host, Matt Corcoran. A question I've gotten a lot and is always confusing, not only to insureds, but it seems to a lot of brokers as well, as product recall expense. And now what I'm talking about specifically is the product recall expense that's built into general liability policies. Not all general liability policies have this coverage, but for a lot of life science clients and life science specific policies, there's usually a sublimit of it included in a policy. You might find 100,000, 250,000, usually not too much higher than 250,000. So what is product recall expense coverage? So again, it's the recall expense. So that's a number of different things, to include such things as the communication, let the public know that this is happening, and also to hire a PR firm, the cost to rent space to store the recalled product, the expense to transport the product back from third parties, the cost to test and inspect the product to see if a class 1 recall is warranted, and then the cost to properly dispose of the product if it's if you have to recall it. What it does not cover are the litigation expenses, the regulatory cost. If there's a regulatory proceeding, it won't cover that. And then the big thing is the cost to repair or replace your product. So it doesn't cover any of those three things. There's also conditions that need to be met. It has to happen in the coverage territory. It has to be initiated during the policy period. And the product actually has to be relinquished to others. So it has to be shipped out, more or less. So those are the three things it has to have met as well. Now there's, as you can imagine, a number of exclusions that are pretty common. If there was a chemical change, that could be excluded. If it was a faulty formula or specifications that you sent out, that's typically going to be excluded. If the product doesn't do what it was intended to do, so basically a failure to perform its intended purpose, that's excluded. If the material later becomes banned or deemed unsafe, that could very well be excluded as well. If it exceeds its shelf life, could be excluded as well. If other similar products are withdrawn, that does not mean your product is going to be covered either. And then of course, if you knew about this prior to inception, that would be an exclusion as well. So that's a kind of a high-level overview of what product recall expense coverage is. It's going to cover just the expenses. It's not going to replace the product to your customers. It's not going to give you business income loss. It's just going to basically, hey, let's let the public know. Let's make sure this is a class 1 recall, test it, inspect it, store it, and dispose of it. And it's going to be usually pretty limited. If you want broader coverage, you want to get actually a product recall policy, which we can talk about in a later episode. So thanks for listening. Keep the questions coming, and I'll keep answering them. Have a great day.